you so much. What a delight to be here in beautiful Denver with my fellow conservatives. Look, this is the event of the year. I've been looking forward to this all summer. Summer's not very old, but this is such a great event and wonderful to see you. Look, I want to talk to you today about optimism, because we need it. It's been a tough week. But let me tell you what's the most disappointing thing about the past 7 years. Doesn't matter how you voted in 2008. In 2008, the United States elected a man who won the White House promising the nation hope, optimism, and unity. The disappointment of our time is that the same man has governed for 7 years on the basis of division and pessimism. Now, why is that a problem? Because it's bad for America. That's why it's a problem. He immediately set out as President of the United States, setting Americans against one another with the politics of resentment and envy. He blamed America's problems on George W. Bush, on the Republican Party, and most importantly, on you. After 8 years, 7 to be exact, 8 soon enough, this presents every one of us in this room with a choice. We can have competing pessimism to the President of the United States and his party, or we can choose optimism. That's our choice today. Now, you might ask yourself, can you really choose optimism? Can people choose optimism, or are you just born that way? Let me tell you how to choose optimism. I've got 3 kids, 3 teenagers. Pity me. And we were at a particularly trying and troubling parent-teacher conference recently. Some of you have experienced this. You know who you are. It was a grades issue. And on the way home, my wife and I were silent in the car. It was tense. Finally, my wife said, "Here's how we need to look at it. At least we know he's not cheating." Yeah. See, that's choosing optimism, my friends. And here's the good news. If we can choose optimism starting today, and we can carry that through 2016, it's going to win. I'm the president of a think tank. I look at research all day long. I crunch numbers for 10 years as an academic economist. And so I look at these studies, and let me tell you, there are a lot of studies on optimism, and there's one thing that they all say: optimists win and pessimists lose. There are 4 Dutch research psychologists in 2013. They published a wonderful study. They were looking at how one leader, who's actually an actor in an experiment, would act as if he was happy in front of one group and sad in front of the other, optimistic in one and pessimistic in the other. The people who saw the optimistic leader rated him 2.5 times more effective than the same guy with the same words acting as if he were a pessimist. The choice is really up to us. Now, we have every incentive to go out there in the world and say, it's lousy. The other guys are no good. Everything is against us. But if we do, we're going to see the same outcomes that we saw last time and the time before. So here's really what I want to talk about in the next few minutes. How do you choose optimism? And I want to give you 3 tips on what we can do, and we're all going to be real happy about. Number 1, be a happy warrior and fight for people. Number 2, treat everyone in our lives like an asset to develop, not like a liability to manage. And number 3, don't be a whiner. So let's get started. Number 1, be a happy warrior. You know, we all remember the patron saint of our movement, St. Ronald Reagan. You know, I mean, I know it's been a long time since he was president, but it's as if it were yesterday. The problem is that what we forget about Reagan is his real magic. You know, we remember the things that Reagan fought against. He fought against government overreach. He fought against bureaucracy. He fought against taxes. He fought against regulation. All that is true. But that wasn't the real magic of Reagan. Remember what he really did. Reagan's true magic was fighting for people every single day. I come from a liberal household in Seattle, Washington. And let me tell you, I literally did not know one person who voted for Ronald Reagan. How he got elected is a big mystery to me. Turns out it was you and your families. Thank you for doing that, by the way. One thing I knew, notwithstanding the fact that everybody in my family and everybody in my friends thought that something was wrong with Reagan and he shouldn't be president of the United States, I had this sense he loved me. Why is that? Because it was true. In his acceptance speech in Detroit in 1980, that troubled city, still troubled today, go back and read it. I recommend that you do that. The number one word in that speech, you know what it is? People. He said people 87 times. Reagan was a president that fought for people as opposed to fighting against things. So that's the lesson that we still need to learn today. Fight for people, not against things. And fight for who? I'll tell you who. The people who are not in this room. The people who can't be with us. The people who've been left behind by this administration. We've had 7 years of marginalization of the poor, and somebody's got to fight for them, and that's us. Because we are our brother's keepers. You know it's true. You know, and I was listening to the State of the Union address, what really caught my attention last January, I'm sure that all of you suffered through it too, and the President of the United States was boasting about how America was back. The economy was back. He was talking about the evidence to that effect. You know what he was using? He was using the value of the American stock market, the Dow Jones Industrial Average. And the truth is, it's increased by about 130% in inflation-adjusted terms since the day President Obama took office. Great, right? 81% of those gains have gone into the pockets of the top 10% of the income distribution. That's from the redistributionist pro-poor president. Extraordinary. Economists like me will always tell you that economic growth is going to be 2.5% this year. Slow but steady. That's a lie. It's going to be 6% for people in the top 20% of the income distribution, most of you. It's going to be 0% for everybody in the bottom half. This country's leaving the poor behind, led by the President of the United States. Since the President took over in 2009, the number of Americans on food stamps has gone from 32 million to 48 million. A 50% increase in the number of Americans, 1 in 6 today, so poor that they have to rely on the government for food assistance. That's un-American. That's not right. Somebody needs to fight for those people. It doesn't matter how they vote. Remember, true patriots fight for people who need them, not for people who support them. And that falls to you and me. So remember, be a happy warrior. Fight for people. Be truly like Reagan. That's the first characteristic of an optimist. Number 2, treat everybody like an asset, not like a liability. Listen to our friends on the left when they talk about poverty, when they talk about vulnerability, when they talk about people with disabilities, when they talk about immigrants. Listen to how they talk. Here's what they say. I want to give them a better life. Good for them. But to give somebody else a better life is to treat them like a liability, to treat them like a dependent. What do we want? We want to build other people's lives so they can give themselves a better life, because we believe everybody's an asset. The human family has a place for everybody. Nobody's a liability to manage. A company that manages liabilities wants to get rid of those liabilities as soon as they can. A company that sees its assets wants to develop them. Sometimes it costs money. Sometimes it costs effort, the time and talent and treasure of each one of us. But if we look at every human person and we say, he or she's an asset in our human family, we're going to treat them entirely differently. We're going to treat them the way they should be treated. Let me tell you about the guy who taught me that. I spend time with my colleagues at AEI at the best performing agencies and organizations in America for helping people who have needs. And one of the best I've ever seen is a place in New York City. It's called the Doe Fund. It deals with the hardest cases. It deals with the cases of people that society wants to throw away. It specializes in single men who are coming out of prison after major crimes, after 10 to 20 years, and are homeless. These are the people that we like least in society. We think they're predators, they're a problem. If anybody's a liability, these guys are a liability to manage, right? The Doe Fund in New York, homeless shelter, is run by a husband and wife, George and Harriet McDonald. They started it because they believe that everybody's an asset. The first week I visited this program, I met a man. His name is Richard. Met a lot of guys, but this one made a real impression on me. He had been at the Doe Fund for 1 week after being in prison for 18 years. He didn't know how to drive a car. He didn't know how to use a cell phone. He'd never had a job. I said, Richard, how do you think it's going to go? I didn't know what to say. I was trying to make conversation. Richard said, I don't know. I hope it's okay. He told me his story. His story was heartbreaking. It was terrible. I saw him after a year. He'd gone through the program. He'd gone through life skills. He'd gone through job training. After 1 year, I said, how's it going? And Richard said, I just got my first apartment. I just got my first job. He was working as an exterminator of bugs. And but here's where it's interesting, because the Doe Fund treats everybody like an asset, and here's how I saw the effect of that. I said, Richard, that's great that you have a job, and that's great that you have an apartment. Are you happy? And Richard said, am I happy? And he pulled out his iPhone, and I thought he was going to show me his iPhone was making him happy, and I thought, well, I love my iPhone too, but it's not the source of happiness. That wasn't what he meant at all. He said, look at my email. He showed me an email from his boss, and the email said, emergency bed bug job on East 65th Street. I need you now. And he said, he needs me now. Yes, I'm happy. The first time in my life someone needs me now. You want to know the American way, the conservative way, the optimistic way? People want to earn their success. Dignity comes through honest work. Every person can add value. Principle number 2 of being a conservative optimist: talk about, treat everyone, see everyone, every child, every person with disabilities, everyone no matter where they were born, everybody no matter how much money they have or how much education they have is an asset and a child of God and must be developed as opposed to a liability to manage. Leave the other side to the left. We're the optimists. Number 3, it's my favorite. Stop whining. This is real. This is, again, I got teenagers, so I'm saying this all day long, right? You heard just a minute ago, I have kind of a non-traditional path to being the president of a think tank. I'm not a Harvard man. When I was 19, I dropped out of college. Dropped out, kicked out, splitting hairs. And I went on the road as a musician. And I worked all the way through my 20s as a musician. But it always bugged me. Everybody had gone to college in my family, my brother and my mom, my dad, my grandfather, And it was a big disappointment to my parents, I'll be honest. And when I met my wife, I was in Barcelona, playing in the Barcelona Symphony. Right? And I met my wife, and I was in love with this girl. And I confessed to her something that was weighing heavy on my heart. I said, I got to tell you, I didn't graduate from college. And she starts laughing. I said, why are you laughing at me? Why are you making fun of me? She says, because I dropped out of high school. Well, we moved to America. We immigrated to my country together when we were in our late 20s. My job, as I saw, was I was going to go back to college. I was going to work a low-wage job and get my college degree, and we needed my wife to work. We had no money. And my wife had no college or high school diploma. She didn't speak English. She didn't have work skills for this country. And we were very worried, I have to tell you. Was she going to be able to work? What was going to happen? She got 3 job offers in her first month. And she said to me, and I remember this because it rocked my world, this was the first step on my path to joining you as a conservative, by the way. She said, this is the greatest country in the world for people who want to work. Uh-huh. She's not a whiner. You heard about what she said about my son. She taught me that whining's not right. Nobody likes a whiner. Everybody likes optimism. There's a wonderful study that comes from Stanford University. 4 Stanford psychologists in 2010. They got 104 undergraduate students together, and they asked them, they put them in 2 groups, they randomly assigned them in 2 groups, and they asked half of them to talk about the last time they were bored, and the other half to talk about the last time that they felt like a victim of unfairness. They asked them to complain. They asked them to whine about some way in which they were feeling like they had been victimized. Now, what is the experiment? Afterward, they wanted to investigate the character of the 2 groups. What does whining do to your character? That's what they found out. They asked each one of them to help the experimenter with a simple task. What do they find? The complainers refused. They were also more likely to feel entitled. And here's the best part. The people who had whined in the experiment were more likely to leave trash on the table and steal the experimenter's pens. You got it from the research. Nobody likes a whiner. Not even the experimenters, not even the college professors. Nobody likes a whiner. Now, we all know that whining is the national sport of liberals. We know that. I'm telling you, everybody's a victim on their side. Everybody's getting into the act, right? Here's the problem. The problem is when we get into the act. We're conservatives. We're not complainers. We don't try to stand up for some grievance that we have. We stand up for other people who are being left behind. Think about the things that we complain about. Look, I know there's a lot to be disappointed about. We can complain about the Supreme Court. We can complain about anything we want. We can feel victimized by the mainstream media. I hear it all the time. We can feel victimized and rant about Hollywood. We can complain about the fact that academia is really left-wing. These things are true. I know these things are true, and I know these things are not right. But you know what? That takes away from our message of unity and optimism. That takes away from our ability to show compassion and fight for true fairness, which is to treat everybody like an asset. And if you don't believe a bunch of Stanford psychologists, I bet you'll believe St. Peter in his first letter, chapter 2, verse 15. It is God's will that your good lives should silence those who make foolish accusations against you. In other words, live right, show love, and don't complain about being a victim. So let's sum it up. There's plenty to be angry about in America today. There's a lot more that you're going to be angry about between now and 2016. But let's be a little honest here. How many of us would turn in our passports for the passport of any other country in the world? No hands, my friends. No hands. And I bet you, if you were a bunch of liberals and you spoke what's written on your heart, you'd say the same thing. This is still the greatest country. No matter how angry we are and no matter how much we get the short end of the stick in the liberal media, none of us wants to move to France. We know it's true. That's the first time France has gotten applause in this room, let me tell you. Being an optimist is the program that aligns with the facts about the country that we love, because you should never bet against America. And in your hands, this country's coming back. So, here's what I'd like you to do. You get to see everybody who wants to be president of the United States up on this stage. You get to assess them. They're in your hands. You're going to decide. Effectively, the activists, the conservative movers, the leaders in communities are in charge of what's going to happen. So ask yourself this. Here's the test. When I look at a candidate, does he or she bring me up or down? Do I feel more optimistic or more pessimistic about this country? Does this person encourage me to be my best self or not? Does he or she believe that every single person is an asset to the world and American family or not? We have to choose right. We have to bring the future that will belong to optimists, because optimists are going to win, and America needs that to be our side, my friends. The answer, the choice is in our hands. It's in your hands, and we're going to choose right. God bless you. God bless America. Thank you.